Welcome to Navigating Betrayal live webinar, podcast, and YouTube channel. I'm your host, KayLee Dunn, a betrayal navigation coach, betrayal trauma therapist for over a decade, and admin of this free group, Humans Navigating Betrayal. You guys, as you already are noticing, it's a little different today, and I hope you guys are so excited to connect in with us and hear from my buddy and colleague, Hope Ray. So today we're going to co-host our webinar. Stick around for a short Q&A at the end. So if you have questions throughout about what we're talking about, or you want to put your input in about something that we're talking about, please put your comments right here in the Facebook group under this live. And at the end, I'll go back to those and make sure that we answer any questions you have or read any comments. And then I have a big announcement that Hope is kind of a part of too. So we're going to do that. So stay till the very end so that you get that big announcement. Okay, so what we're going to be discussing today is this it's a really big question. So there's a lot of places we can go with it. And it's, how do we shift to self-care and safety after betrayal? That's the question. And also, like, why is it so hard? But first, I want Hope to introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are, what's your background, and why you're here in doing this role. Yeah.
Well, I'm here because it's a chance to spend time collaborating with you, KayLee, which is just fun. It's so fun.
It's always
fun.
I'm
grateful for your friendship and your expertise in this field and the way that you illuminate important truth for people who are going through betrayal. And so just hoping to contribute to the conversation today. I'm a therapist in Michigan, and I currently lead individual intensives for couples through a 3-day journey of disclosure and polygraph and transformative honesty intervention. And I do that based off of some of the work that I've put together and finally released this past year around complex partner trauma and the concept of betrayal violence. So those are the two areas that my nose has been down in for years and years. And in the last year, I finally put that stuff into the world. So I'm grateful about that. I also do individual intensives for women who are either in the throes of betrayal and they're partnered or married to someone who's, either addicted or living a secret life and being abusive in non-physical ways, but in psychological, emotional ways, or for women who are divorced or divorcing, separated from that type of situation. So I meet individually with them. They come to Michigan for a few days and we work together. So that's, I think, a good little chunk about me.
Yeah, that is a good chunk about you. And you have really been doing this work for a very long time and really fit for the community that we're going live with right here in this Humans Navigating Betrayal group. So I think that everything that you bring today is going to really be beneficial. So let's go to that question. And I'd love to hear your perspectives on this, and I'll chime in as well. My thoughts on this. This is just a huge question. So like, why is it so hard for us to shift to safety and self-care? And then maybe we'll just start there, because I like to start with that component of it. But yeah, I like to be really compassionate towards that component, that it is very difficult and it can even feel like a slap in the face at first, that invitation to turn towards self. So let's just talk a little bit about that.
Well, and I like the question. And I think, when I think of this question, I think, gosh, there is a lot we probably want to talk about before we just say, oh, well, the shift, you just decide to start taking care of yourself.
Right.
I don't have a really organized way to talk through this, because this question is not something that I've sat down and decided I wanted to write about or really create some sort of resource around. And I think part of that is because it is pretty different for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
But there's probably a few things that are the same. So here's one of the first things I think. I'll see what you think, KayLee. You have to be able to have a certain level of safety in order for your nervous system to stop trying to protect you so much. And even once you have safety, your nervous system will most likely stay activated. And that's when it becomes tricky to find a way to in the midst of safety that's real and true,
Yeah.
allow yourself to come into a place of, essentially homeostasis again,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
there's different ways we could look at this question. I mean, if you're not safe in a physical way, or financially you're not safe, or you're experiencing abuse, then there's certain priorities there that would maybe not apply to somebody who feels relatively safe, but just is not able to focus on taking care of themselves. They're caught up in
Right.
this world of trauma, etc. So I guess looking at it from a zoomed out lens, I would say, there's probably two main groups that we're going to be talking about. One would be in active abuse or inactive unsafe situations, and those
Yeah.
who then have some level of safety but are just wanting to find ways to take better care of themselves. There's kind of different options on the table for those two groups. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I love that you're bringing that in, kind of like great question, but we've got to create this foundation of understanding. And part of it, especially for that group that's in active abuse, I was wondering if you could share a little bit with us about, it's just coming to mind now, about why are we having that activated trauma response in both groups, and maybe share a little bit about betrayal violence with us, because that's something that I think is really foundational, that if we don't understand betrayal violence as a form of abuse, we're not going to really understand why we're feeling this way in the first place, right? So I don't know if you'd mind sharing with us that theory, and of course those of us that are therapists and coaches and have seen this played out in real time, but I'd love for you to share that with
Yeah,
us.
well, thanks for the invitation. I know so many in this group have experienced the, conduct of betrayal violence, but let me break it down because it sounds like a scary word. Violence sounds like something that would be physical, involve malice and intentional lurking in order to create harm. But that's actually not the definition of violence. And our society does need a more thorough understanding of violence. Truly, if somebody uses power and control in a way that benefits them at the disadvantage of another person, it can unfold into violent outcomes. And again, it doesn't have to be physical, although what we know is that in the realm of secret cheating, there can be physical consequences, which could constitute sexual assault, essentially, when somebody does not have the information they need to properly consent to how their body is exposed to things that are being just withheld from them, information being withheld from them. So betrayal violence, to be quick and clear about it, it's the most non-pathologizing way really to describe what's going on that causes all this trauma for betrayed partners. Sometimes we call these people sex addicts or narcissists or many things all lumped into one, and some of those things may be true. At the end of the day, though, if there's one thing they're all doing, it's the same three things. The conduct that they're doing is the following. Number one, they are partnered with somebody in a commitment of monogamy, where the expectation is monogamy. So they're maintaining a relationship with their significant other while secretly and repeatedly violating fidelity. And fidelity violations can be done in physical sexual ways or non-physical sexual ways, including, using finances and keeping secrets there to support acting out. So maintaining a relationship with your partner while secretly and repeatedly violating fidelity. And the third thing then is using, deception, persuasion, subterfuge, gaslighting, abusive behavior and communication to withhold essential information from the partner. This disables the partner from being able to accurately assess their own reality, the reality of their relationship, the reality of their own safety and well-being. And so it leads to trauma, which I call complex partner trauma. And so betrayal violence is essentially another form of domestic violence. It is very often not intended by the person doing it because they're using power and control evasively to try and avoid consequences and sometimes even protect their partner from knowing this dark side of them. They know how much pain would unfold, but it's not noble to do these things, and they always unfold in traumatic ramifications for families and for partners. So I think when we look at betrayal violence, in order to look at this question, we would have to say, if you've experienced that, then you've had a straitjacket on your reality. And the belts of that straitjacket were fastened by your closest and dearest, the person to whom you looked to maintain your best interest and uphold what mattered to you, and the deception and the abusive behavior that's used in place of the love and protection that was expected causes a lot of extreme detriment. So it absolutely constitutes trauma, and then our nervous systems get, super activated.
Right. And so when we step into the world of healing, right? So there's the illusion, there's the lies, the manipulation, that straitjacket that you described, that's created not just by our partner, but certainly is, but also by society that would prefer us to stay blind to all of this stuff because it's easier for them, right?
Yeah.
When we step from that place of illusion into a place of recognition of betrayal, becoming awake, which is what our group is really full of, is people who are awake to betrayal, awake to the way the world is. And it's a lot, right? It's a lot. And then when you take that step in and you start reaching out to therapists and coaches and even social media accounts, and you're met with, take care of yourself. You should just do some self-care. I've called it the weaponization of self-care that's been used from society, as well as sometimes your partner's therapist, to say, okay, well, the reason you're having this big reaction is because you're not doing enough self-care. And that word itself can feel triggering. It can feel like, what do you mean to take care of myself? As though somehow you weren't taking care of yourself before, and that's what's led you to where you are now. And so all these feelings are coming up because you weren't. And I want anyone listening here to know that Hope and I, and those that are doing this work, I think with a clear awareness of this experience, experiencing it myself as well, is that no. Right? You're feeling the pain you're feeling. You're going through the turmoil, the agony, want to tear your skin off, can't look at yourself in the mirror, feeling dead inside, all of those traumatic experiences because of what's been done to you. Right? This isn't about your poor attachment or your inability or your childhood traumas. Now, those things might be influential factors, of course, as to how you're experiencing this trauma now, but that you're experiencing it because this happened to you, something happened to you. And that thing that happened to you is called betrayal violence, right? And so when we say, why is it so hard? You kind of already touched on this. Why is it so hard for us to gently shift to self-care, self-compassion, and find that safety that we need? Well, it's because we're lambasted by trauma due to betrayal violence. And so it's like, I say, it's kind of like you get a tsunami, you're standing on a beach trying to get away, and every time you try to get away, the tsunami comes and hits you again. So of course it's pulling you back into that survival mode that is really going to naturally be focused on your partner, the one who is harming you, right? It's as if someone threw you into a lion's cage, and then they stand outside the bars and they're like, hey, look at me. Self-care, remember, don't look at the lion, just take some deep breaths, do some yoga, don't look at the lion, right? It's insanity, right? It feels like crazy making. And yet, in order for us to get that prefrontal cortex back online and to start making some long-term planning and some future vision, we actually do have to create safety and do some self-care and some really gentle nurturing of ourselves. So I get, and I think Hope gets as deeply as you do, how crazy making it can sound, and that it is very difficult, and that it's not impossible.